biscuits and chocolate gravy. Are you asking, what in the world are you making? Well, this has been a thing here in Alabama for quite some time. Maybe you've never heard of it, but if you have, you know what a treat it is. This is going to be a delicious breakfast for some special treats, which Christmas Day is coming up, and it's a great option for Christmas morning. Stick around. We're going to make biscuits and chocolate gravy. We're actually going to make angel biscuits. Now, a lot of times when I do biscuits and chocolate gravy, I just use buttermilk biscuits. And I have a great recipe for that I've already posted. A lot of you may have seen it. If you haven't, we'll put a link to it. And if you prefer to make buttermilk biscuits, they're a little bit quicker than these, and they go perfectly with this chocolate gravy. But let me get started here, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do angel biscuits today. First thing, I've got 1/4 of a cup of warm water. It's warm. You don't want it too hot. You just want it warm enough to activate this yeast, and we're going to use 1 packet of the dry instant yeast. This is the fast-acting kind, the rapid rise, but you can use whatever kind you want. And I'm just going to give this a quick stir, and then we're going to set it aside while we start getting some other ingredients ready. But part of the reason I want to make angel biscuits today is it's just a delicious little biscuit, and it's kind of a cross between a buttermilk biscuit and a yeast roll that rises. This does have yeast in it, as you can see. We're going to let these biscuits rise one time. They don't have to rise twice like a yeast roll, but they're perfect for a breakfast, a special breakfast like Christmas morning with this chocolate gravy, or they're also perfect for your Christmas dinner. I mean, they can really stand in the way of a yeast roll for your dinner and be absolutely delicious. So I wanted to put this recipe out before Christmas because you can use it for either one. So anyway, we've got our yeast that's sitting here getting ready. Now I want to get our dry ingredients here in the bowl. And first we're going to start with our flour. And I am using self-rising flour today. Now you can also just use plain all-purpose flour. If you do that, you'll need to add your measurements for the baking powder, the baking soda also for this. But I'm just going to use self-rising flour. And we want to use 2 1/4 cups. So I'm going to get that measured out now. 1 cup. Oops, a little bit fell in there. I don't want to get too much flour in our bowl. And then we want 1/4 of a cup. So I'm going to measure it in this. And that takes care of our flour. Now we also want to use about 1/4 of a cup of sugar. These biscuits do have just a slight sweetness to them. So I'm going to put that in here now. And then even though the self-rising flour does have a little bit of salt in it, I'm going to add just a little bit more, maybe about 1/2 teaspoon. I'm just going to kind of measure that in my hand. And now I'm just going to kind of give this a quick stir to get those dry ingredients mixed together before we start adding our liquid ingredients. And you'll notice I'm not using my mixer today. I'm just using a bowl. You don't need to overmix these, so it's really easy to just do it by hand with a bowl and a spoon. So that's what I'm doing today. Okay, and I'm kind of forming a well in the middle, as you can see. And what I want to do now is to add all of our wet ingredients. And I have 1/2 cup of butter. And I have melted it, and I'm going to pour it in here. That last little bit out. And I have 1 cup of buttermilk. We're going to pour that in there too. We're going to take our yeast water that we got ready. I'm going to give it one more stir, and it looks like it has worked pretty well. And we're just going to add that in the middle too with all those other liquid ingredients. Just like that. And now we just want to start stirring it together, bringing that flour into all those other ingredients. This is a little bit different recipe than I have used for years with Angel Biscuits. And this one actually calls for 2.5 cups of flour. So we're going to go back and add just another 1/4 of a cup of that flour now. I thought this dough looked a little bit too sticky. And it'll be fine that we're adding it here. It's not going to make any difference at all that we're adding it at the end. And that looks more like the biscuit dough we want it to look like. Okay, that looks better. It is still sticky. We're going to use more flour. I'm going to take us, let's go over here to this counter. All right, now that I've got a good working space, we're going to put some flour down so that we can cut our biscuits out. I'm just going to use my hand and do a sprinkle. And if you have a certain mat that you can use to put down, to put your flour on, that's great. I don't. I just always use my countertops. Make sure it's good and clean. Okay. Now let's get some more flour and sprinkle pretty generously. You don't want your dough too sticky. You want to be able to work with it with your hands without it just sticking to your hands. And we're going to knead it over just a few times. I'm going to get a little more flour as needed. Make sure that my surface underneath stays good and floured so that it won't stick to that surface either. Okay. Just one final little sprinkle underneath. And I think we have our dough pretty good. So now, I'm not even going to use a rolling pin. I'm just going to use my hands and pat it down to about the desired consistency. It is going to rise, or to the desired height. It is going to rise a little bit more. So you don't want it too tall. But I like to go ahead and start with mine. Oh, it's maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick. And then, just like in any biscuits, when you start cutting them out, just push straight down like that. And see, we have our nice little biscuit there. And I'm going to line mine on a parchment-lined tray today, baking sheet. And I am going to lay them out where there's just a little bit of space, but not too much between them. I want them to be fairly close so that they won't spread out too much. We want them to rise instead of spread out. So we want them kind of close, but I don't want them quite touching at this point. So you can see about the amount of space we have there. And I'm just going to continue to cut out my biscuits and lay them out. On the pan here. And then once you get to the point where you've cut out all you can, then just gather your dough and go through the same process again, except you don't want to knead it so much. At this point, it's already kneaded enough. Just get it together where you can lay it out and press it down again like this. Okay, now we can cut out a few more biscuits. And then one more time. to gather the dough. I think I might be able to get, maybe 2 biscuits. There's one. And then this last one may not be exactly the same size as the others, but it'll be pretty close. Just use what you've got there at the end. And I kind of get it like that. And then put my biscuit cutter around it. And that kind of gives the shape. Well, look, it turned out about the perfect size, didn't it? Really close. Okay, so we have our tray of biscuits. And now we need to let them rise. They're going to rise just one time. And once they have risen, which takes usually about an hour to an hour and a half, then we can bake them. So let's let them rise and then come back and check them with me. All right, it's been close to an hour and a half, and our biscuits have risen a little bit, so I'm going to bake them now. I have my oven heated up to 400 degrees, and I'm going to set my timer for 8 minutes. I think they're going to take closer to 10, but I don't want them to get too brown. So I'm going to set my timer for 8 minutes. While our biscuits are baking, it's the perfect time to make our chocolate gravy. We're going to start with 1 cup of sugar. To this, we're going to add about 1/4 of a cup of flour. And this is just plain all-purpose flour. And then we're also going to add about 1/4 of a cup of cocoa. Now I'm going to kind of give this a quick stir to get those dry ingredients mixed up pretty well. It seems to help with any lumps if you do this a little bit first before you add your liquid to it. Kind of helps break up that cocoa a little bit. And it doesn't have to be all the way smooth, but that probably is good enough. We can finish that as we stir it while it cooks. So now we're going to take our milk and we're going to add about 1 cup of milk to this pan. And then we're going to stir it up. And I just have this over kind of a medium to medium high heat. And you will want to stir it often. As it gets closer to being finished, you'll want to stir it constantly. Right now, for the first minute or two, you can stir it a little bit and then just let it sit and then come back and stir a little bit more. And that is all that there is to chocolate gravy, except for the final ingredient that we'll add right at the end. We'll put just a little bit of butter in it. And you may think, why is this called chocolate gravy? It mainly has to do with the consistency. You know, we have different kinds of gravy that we use. Different parts of the country like different gravy. We have the white gravy, the sausage gravy. You have brown gravy that you might use. And this is just a sweet version called chocolate gravy. And it is a real treat. It's not something you would make every day for breakfast, of course. You couldn't eat this every day. But for a special treat for somebody's birthday or for Christmas breakfast or Christmas brunch, it's just a really nice option. So if you're looking for something special to make for your family for Christmas breakfast or Christmas brunch, remember this one. It's a really good option. All right, take a look at our chocolate gravy. It is warm now. It's good and steamy. And about as soon as it gets warm, it will start to thicken up slowly. That flour that we added into it is going to make it thicken up to give us the nice consistency of some gravy. And so this is the point. You definitely need to stir it the whole time. You don't want it to stick to the bottom of your pan and burn. Okay, I can feel that it's getting thicker with my spoon. And you can kind of feel it starting to want to stick to the bottom of the pan as well. When it gets hot and bubbly, it's probably about at that point. So let's give it just a little bit longer while we definitely keep stirring. But we are almost to the gravy consistency that we're looking for. You can kind of see that it's getting thicker. I think our gravy is ready. We've got a good thick gravy now, as you can see. And our biscuits are ready. So that was perfect timing. I ended up leaving them in a little bit longer. It was close to 12 minutes that I left them in. Let's go ahead now and add that final ingredient. Close to a tablespoon of butter that we want to add to our chocolate gravy. Now that we've pulled it off, it doesn't need to be in it while you're continuing to cook it. But now that we've pulled it off the heat, let's just let that butter melt into it and just gives it a nicer, smoother, buttery consistency. Okay, we'll come back and stir that one more time. But at this point, I'm also going to I have some melted butter. This was just a couple of tablespoons here. And I'm going to use it to just brush on the tops of our biscuits while they're nice and warm. And these biscuits look like they turned out so good today. Light and fluffy. Look like they're going to be perfect for our chocolate gravy. Looks like our butter was just about the right amount, just almost perfect. Now, let me show you how we plate it up. I'm going to get one biscuit, and I like to split mine open. You may want your gravy just on the top, and if that's the way you like it, you can do that. Now, at this point, you don't have to butter the inside of the biscuit. The chocolate gravy is going to be really good just by itself. If you want to make it even better, you can add some butter. I'm going to add just a little touch, not a lot, just a little bit. That's going to be good enough. Now let's take some gravy and just spoon it over the top of each of our biscuit halves. And that is perfection. Biscuits and chocolate gravy. It's time to give it the taste test. It's a hard job, but somebody has to do it. Mm-mm. Get a little more of that chocolate on there. Okay, now if I get chocolate on my mouth, y'all don't tell me, okay? That turned out just the way I want it. Exactly the way we want it today. That was perfect. That is so delicious. And it's such a special treat because you don't make this all the time for breakfast. If you need just a little something extra for your crew for Christmas morning, try the biscuits and chocolate gravy. I'm so glad you were with me here at Mary Katherine's table today. I love this episode. It makes me think of the first time I had chocolate gravy and biscuits. I was at a friend's house and her mom made it for breakfast. And I went home and I told my mom, you have got to get this recipe. So from then on, my mom made chocolate gravy and biscuits for special occasions for us. And now I do it too. So I hope you'll think about it. I'm really glad you were here for this episode today. Bring your friends along too. Remember to subscribe and set it where you get the notifications when we come out with new videos. And remember to go out and find someone today who needs a little bit of kindness and give them some of yours.